This is a presentation on vocabulary infrastructure. This is a project that Carrie Pollock, Brooke Higgins, and I have been working on, and just wanted to talk about why would I want to build vocabulary infrastructure. Okay, kind of thinking about the end in mind. Number one is I really want to make life easier downstream. So next year, the year after, I want to build something that's going to pay dividends. And that's by building the foundation for content knowledge and skill development, something reliable. I want to promote student ownership. So that means that we eliminate as many excuses as possible. Provide a tangible visual of performance. So we want to see the trajectory of the student's academic efforts. And then we want to have data to analyze. We want to analyze that data. And we want to create opportunities for metacognitive moments, reflective moments there where we evaluate the effectiveness of our effort. Okay, so I want to reemphasize that this is one tool of many for vocabulary infrastructure, and this is just one example of how we're trying to do it. So what are our objectives? The objectives are we want to obtain authentic data regarding each student's understanding of the content vocabulary. Okay, we want to use that data to drive instructional practices. It's difficult when you're actually building it, but when it's done, it gives a lot of additional time to examine that data and make decisions based on the data. We want to build a foundation. That foundation is the bullseye of the information that is very content specific, especially if it's an SOL related course, certified credit. And then we want to increase effectiveness and efficiency downstream for our classroom. We want to be able to acquire that data, have it, and be able to analyze it quickly and easily so that we don't spend a lot of time doing that, and we're able to find information about the students. Okay, so building the infrastructure. How do we do that? The first thing that we've tried to do is identify key terms. So for example, here we're currently in minerals, so this is the minerals vocabulary, and we have a total of around 21 terms, I believe, here. So in this chapter or unit, so 21 terms. This is acquired, students help us fill this out. Sometimes the definitions are out of the book, sometimes they're adjusted so that they fit the content as specifically as possible. Once we get those terms identified, organized, we get definitions, possible visual representations. That's a good thing to have that organized, available to cut and paste and use in a variety of formats. The next thing we do is either find or create assessments. So they could be hard copy, they could be digital, they could be a combination of both. But the first test that we really want is to give a pretest. So when we're talking about a pretest, we're talking about a diagnostic assessment. We're talking about giving the kids a test before they are ever exposed to that topic in our classroom. And it takes explaining what a pretest is to the kids because they feel bad if they don't know. We have to tell them that we have not taught this yet, that this is a baseline assessment, that this is like your conditioning workout at the beginning of the season to figure out conditioning athletically where you're at. And then we can use that as a baseline score to compare to the formative and summative assessments. So once we finish that pretest, and let's take a look at that, we've done ours in Schoology. Some of them I think have been on paper, but for example, right now we're in minerals. We have a specific folder for the pretest, the formative, the summative. We also graph our results. So going into here, we can see that we have a pretest right here. We have 3 different Schoology tests. If we click in here, in this particular test, we have, let's see, 15 questions. Okay, we're able to put audio recordings on those questions to satisfy accommodations. Once this test is created, it easily produces a score that you can access quickly. Okay, that's a good thing. They're not too time consuming. So if we look at a 15, if we look at some of these results, 4 minutes and 13 seconds for this one. Some kids take a little bit longer. I think one of the longer ones on this is around 8 minutes. So for a pretest, okay, so that's our pretest. Then we come back here after the pretest. Let's see, we do the formative. Okay, so the formative test. Okay, our formative test is typically somewhere about halfway through the content. Okay, so we've worked with the words, we have practiced them. We've also made Quizlet available, usually right after the pretest. So Quizlet is an opportunity for the kids to practice on their own. They have the phone app. They have the computer website here. So we have most of our, if not all of our vocabulary posted here on Quizlet. We did get the upgraded version so we can see practicing and some of the weakest words. So here kids can come play a variety of games. They can take tests. This site could also be used as your assessment tool. It might not just be your practice location, it might be your assessment tool using tests. So you wouldn't even have to build the tests in Schoology. So again, then the kids would take the formative. Usually I make 2 different tests, and the summative might be significantly different than the other 2, or vice versa. I may have the pretest and the summative the same, but the formative a little bit different. Now the formative test, they can take multiple times. So students might go in here and take this 2 or 3 or 4 times, and you can choose whether you're going to take the average or the best score, as long as that's clear with the student. That's one opportunity to get the kids to practice. So after that, at the end of the unit, so when you're giving your chapter exam or your unit test or whatever culminating assessment you're going to give, you can combine that with a summative of the vocabulary. So you have your summative vocabulary, which would typically be, in this case, different from the remainder of your assessments, content or objective assessments. So so the summative test would be worth the most. Typically, you're only going to take this one time. So this would be worth a quiz grade or a test grade. And the summative assessment would only be retaken if the student was able to produce a study tool that addressed all of the errors that they made on the test. They come in with the teacher, put in some extra time, or have a good reason why they need to retake that summative. But definitely able to retake it, just need to show that they're properly preparing to retake it. And then finally, we ask the kids to graph the assessments. So we have a criteria for success here, or a rubric that lists out the required criteria with some directions, giving us 16 steps of exactly what they need to do. And then there's a point value assigned to each set of criteria. So this particular graphing assessments criteria for success, you can earn a total of 16 points. We do also have a video tutorial that we can use to show the kids exactly, so we don't have to re-explain it. They can access how to do it from home. So we have a video tutorial that will explain that to them, walk them step by step. It gets the kids understanding about an independent variable, about a dependent variable, about graphing the results. So typically your diagnostic or your pretest is your lowest, your formative is somewhere in between most of the time, and your summative typically is your highest. So this is my example of a pretest. And minerals is where we're at, so we're not done with that yet. Here's a student example of a pretest. So we have 27, 9, 64. Some other examples here of their score. We have them have a tab for each document. They do learn multiple skills in Google Sheets as far as understanding a bunch of different maneuvers and skill sets with graphing. This is also an opportunity to ask them why the results are the way they are. Are their efforts effective? What particular strategies are they using to practice, in class? Is their behavior correlate with success? So these are some good opportunities to review that. And then once they graph their assessment, maybe once per unit or once every other unit, we will sit down and evaluate their criteria for success, and they can earn a grade based on their ability to completely independently graph their assessment. And we have gone through a series of efforts to make sure that we do it as a class, we model the behavior, we give some independent practice, and then we expect them to do that independently. So that is our presentation regarding building vocabulary infrastructure.